So maybe the Almighty had a divine plan in this. Not that he did it, but he allowed it to be done. And he said, those who love me, they diligently seek me. He said for us to search for him, that we could find him. We could find answers. But the reason that we're going through all of this, the average person doesn't have the time to do all that. So now let me continue on here. The word straightway was from the word E-U-T-H-U-S, and it was pronounced yothos. It means straight, level, and advance of time. An advance of time. Forthwith, immediately, straightway. Now advance of time? Well, I'm not going to do any speculating. I'll just leave that for some of you to have fun with. Now all of the Christians, shall we say, they agree Jesus was not limited by doors or walls, and they said that he could reappear outside in the courtyard. Is there any other ancient knowledge that is as scientific as this? Was this referring to the fact he could change his molecular structure and go through what we call solid walls? But anybody with any scientific knowledge, they know that there is nothing solid. Now, what they call a Var-Arama table that was dated BC 550, it indicates the size of an atom. Let me go back and spell this word just in case you don't like my pronunciation. V-A-R-A-H-A-M-I-R-A. They go on to say the mathematical figure is fairly comparable with the actual size of the hydrogen atom. It appears fantastic that this ancient science recognized the atom structure of matter, and they realized how small it is, or is its ultimate particle. Nothing of this kind has ever been attempted in the West until the 12th century. So what we have to understand, these people were not all stupid sheep herders. Now this Philolaus of the 5th century BC, he had a strange notion about an anesthetathon, or anti-Earth, an invisible body in our solar system. And it was only recent that the concept of antimatter, anti-world, and anti-planets had been introduced into our science. In nuclear physics, the positron is now known as electrons traveling from the future into the past. This time direction reversal in the atomic world is a new discovery, but Plato wrote in the Statesman about an oscillating universe periodically reversing its time arrow and sometimes moving from the future into the past. We know now that atomic particles, they can travel backward in time, but it seems that the idea was not unfamiliar to the great Plato. While atomic knowledge in ancient times was fragmentary in character, we cannot say the same thing about astronomy with its deep roots and constant practices over a period of millennia, and the science of the stars, they reached a high level in the times of antiquity, and also the sciences of the people in different races. Now we find the word heavens in Greek is ouranos, the sky, air, the idea of elevation. Note, you have to fly or take a copter ride like Ezekiel. Ouranos can also mean power, as we have shown in other chapters. This is where we got the word uranium from. The word descending is self-explanatory, coming back down. Now, lightning in Greek is E-R-C-H-O-M-A-L. It means of a prime verb used only in the present and in perfect tense, and the other is being supplied by a kindred, or like they say, an elthumio, or act. Then we have the word E-I-T-H-O, and it's spelled or pronounced as eltho. which do not otherwise occur, meaning to come or go in a great variety of applications, literally or figuratively, meaning to accompany, appear, bring, come. So this, if you've been able to follow me, this leaves a lot of speculation. If Christ was truly the Almighty incarnate, and if there's anything to this, time reversal. You know, see, men for centuries have talked about time machines. But is the Almighty, what is time to us? Is He able to enter another dimension? Is He able to stop time, to travel to the past or to the future, where in seconds of our time He could accomplish a great many things? I better stay off that. It gives me mental indigestion. Now we find the word goes on. It is explained. It also means fallout, go, grow, light, next, pass. Does the fallout imply what happened to Paul, causing radiation burns, resort, beset, as hovering in midair? Now the only other place where lightning is used is in Isaiah, the 30th chapter, which is our clue. And the word upon, we are misled to believe something landed on him, a bird in this case. Upon is used only once in the Bible, in Matthew 3:16, where it is, where is the second witness of the Bible that tells us to look for? It's not there because of translators' lack of understanding. They tell you to look in the appendix, and they also they refer you to the word thereupon and whereupon. Now this changes the plot dramatically to me, implying that there were other events that took place after he rose out of the water that has been left entirely out of our Bible. Well, they've done this over and over. We've cited to you the names of the cardinals, the bishops, and all of the different ones that has told you this is exactly what they did. Because they figure the stupid, thundering, unwashed herd, as they looked upon us, that we couldn't conceive it or believe it, and it wasn't for us. I hesitate adding this, knowing full well that many in Christendom are going to disagree with me. But I must say it anyway, in order that it may be better understood, and I believe what they left out, that Christ had already ascended into the mount, the holy city that hovered above the crowd, when they heard it announced over the loudspeakers, announcing, "This is my beloved Son, in whom Yahweh God is well pleased." Now, the hovering overhead there, it could have been probably, as was used in other chapters when he promised a feast. He said, "You will be with me in paradise this day." So I believe that the holy city, the New Jerusalem, was in close proximity to the earth. But we will leave it as it may for the time being. Now let's go back to Isaiah 30 in search of the answer to what happened to John, or St. John, the only two places in the whole Bible that I said the word lightning is used. We find it was also used, God the Father giving a warning as Christ warned the phony preachers that were teaching contrary to His word. Here He's speaking also to the nations of the world. Now quoting from King James in Isaiah 30, 27, 29, 30, and 33, and 2 to 5. All right, we examine this in the 27th verse of Isaiah 30. "Behold, the name of the Lord cometh from far, burning with His anger, and the burden thereof is heavy, and His lips are full of indignation, and His tongue is as a devouring fire." Here we have a clue of the Almighty Lord, who He is, and the clue is that His name, which is the Almighty told Moses, His name was Yahweh. Devouring fire is the judgment that He will bring on all the nations. Now, to pay attention to the next verse in 29. "We shall have a song as in the night when a holy solemnity is kept, and gladness of heart, as when one goeth with a pipe to come into the mountain of the Lord, to the mighty one of Israel. Here the Almighty tells us, His followers, that will enter into His mountain or holy, great extraterrestrial flying city, or space station as I call it, at the head of His legions of millions of extraterrestrial warships that will be under Michael's command. Now see the prophecy of Daniel 12. Now the 30th verse goes on to say, and the Lord shall cause His glorious voice to be heard, and He will shew the lightning down of His arm with the indignation of His anger, and He will set the flame of a devouring fire with scattering and tempest and hailstones. Now, as we've told you beforehand, represents the weapons of great extraterrestrial power. That's called many times the Holocaust machine in the Hebrew. And the lightning, they're descending to our world to make war against our adversary. And it speaks of devouring fire and consuming the evil. Now the, verse 30 goes on to say, O Lord, be... Now this is 2 and 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here from the King James. O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for Thee. Be Thou their arm every morning. Is that referring to the morning star? It goes on to say, our salvation also in the time of trouble. In the 3rd verse, at the noise of the tumult of the people fled, at the lifting up of Thyself, the nations were scattered. Now, morning comes after the dark midnight hour. His arm or weapons and intercessions, He will be our salvation against these invading armies of Edom, meaning the Reds. His mountains are holy ships. They're going to light up the darkened sky. But what are you going to do with that? Lifting up Thyself as the nations were scattered. And your power shall be gathered like the gathering of the caterpillar, as the running to and fro of locusts shall He run upon them. The Lord is exalted, for He dwelleth on high. He has filled Zion with judgment and righteousness. Again, we see here He dwells high up in the holy city. He's coming to judge the evil empire. Here the word Zion means Zion, which means government. The laws that make up that government, and they will be followed. This is where so-called Christendom has failed in getting us to believe Satan's lie that we're no longer under God's law. Now, if they are right, then Christ, He has no right to come back here and judge. A lot of people say blasphemous. Well, if there's no law, how can there be any judgment? Now, what we quoted back there, I believe we were quoting from Isaiah, 34. That was 2 to 5. Now, let's see. We have, I'd like to quote here, put this down, Isaiah 34, 3 to 10. And it tells us their slain shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcass, and to the mountains shall be melted with their blood. Now, mountains here represents the governments of this world or nations. Now, verse 4 says, all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled back like a scroll, and all of their hosts shall fall down. My friends, that's talking about planes, ships. As the leaf falleth from the vine, as a falling fig from the fig tree. We've covered all this in the Star Wars chapters, and it's also repeated in Revelations, where you've seen these planes going into a tailspin, these war movies, and the newsreel of the Second World War in Korea and Vietnam. And he goes on to say in the 5th verse, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come up on Idumea. That's another word for Edom. And upon the people of my curse to judgment. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and the blood of lambs and goats, and the fat of the kidneys of ram. For the Lord has a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. And the verse 7 here speaks of the unicorns They shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls. And their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. The verse 7 there, we're speaking of the unicorns and the bullocks. It sounds like it won't be just China and Russia and other communist nations in English heraldry. We find here in their heraldry the unicorn and the bull and the bullock. It represents nations under the British rule, or were once under the British rule. Now the 9th verse, and the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof unto brimstone, and the land shall become burning pitch. I believe that 9th verse there sounds very much like a repetition of what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah. And we find that Christ, when he told his disciples to pay attention, as it was in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, as it was in the days of Noah. Well, it doesn't fit with the days of Noah till we understand that the Genesis account of the flood is taken from the Babylonian account. But please don't be offended by that, and don't jump on my case, but wait until I can give you some evidence and see if it doesn't make more sense to you. And I'm going to take other parts of Scripture and prove this to you. Now the 10th verse, it shall not be quenched day or night, and the smoke thereof shall go up forever, from generation to generation. It shall lay waste, and none shall pass through it forever and ever. Now verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord, and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate, for my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. We should listen and take warning at this midnight hour that his, shall we say, his Holy Spirit is guiding us. Now, like Isaiah 33, 8 to 15, this very one that was baptized, that was caught up here, he's tried to show us an example. And if you're just New Testament Christians, you never would have understood this. And this is why we're taking the time to go back and talk about our only salvation, unless this is correct and there's some extraterrestrial intervention, then, my friends, we are down the tube. But I don't think so. I have faith in the Almighty. I've learned to believe in him from my research and studies and his prophecies, and I see that he fulfills them. Isaiah 33, 8 to 15, it tells us, starting with the 8th verse, the highways lay waste, the wayfaring man seeth it. He has broken the covenant. He has despised the cities. He regardeth no man. The 9th verse, the earth mourneth and languish. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. Verse 10, now will I rise, saith the Lord. Now will I be exalted. Now will I lift up myself. You shall conceive chaff. You shall bring forth stubble. Your breath as fire will devour you, and the people shall be as the burning of lime. As thorns cut up shall they be burned in the fire. Verse 4 sounds very much like some type of atomic, or should we say hydrogen warfare. Verse 13, hear ye that are far off what I have done, and that ye that are near acknowledge my might. Verse 13, if you don't turn, you're going to burn, is what he's trying to tell us. Verse 14, it says, the sinners in Zion. Now it's talking about geographical location, I believe, here on this earth. People who profess to be at the seat of and represent the government of the Almighty. But we'll see about these false prophets. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Fearfulness hath surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burning? Now sin means to fall short of the law. So right here it tells us that these sinners are people who won't keep God's law. Now I think he's going to cut his children some slack that don't believe in it, but those that profess to believe it and don't keep it, well, then that's another tune. The 15th verse says, he that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, he that despiseth the gain of oppression, and that shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shutteth his eyes from seeing evil. sounds like good news for Christ followers. But today, does this sound like a lot of our politicians and so forth? And we hear all of these people over there near the land of Israel, they're being shot down because they tossed a few stones. And I can see maybe you shoot one or two people, but when you shoot 19 or 20, it sounds like the other nations of the world, they're starting to condemn these people for doing this. Now Isaiah 34:2, for the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. And I don't think that we need any explanation to go along with that. But he who was at the river Jordan, who was baptized there, who was lifted up into the third heaven, he who the angelic hosts of the extraterrestrials of outer space, who joined with earthmen to see a union between God and men and angels and sons here on this earth. And I believe that he was trying to give a warning, and this is what he was referring to when he, like John told these serpent people, who has told you to flee from the wrath which is to come. So we will sign off now, and if you care to receive any more of our cassette tapes, what I call the 6-packs, or these cassette packs, write to us, Pilgrim Ships, P.O. Box 1086, Lakeview, Missouri 65737, and we thank you for listening.